Be there for DirecTV Speed Weeks as we launch Speed High Def with 100 hours of coverage from Daytona. Speed is everywhere on and off the track as the team scramble to make the 50th Daytona 500. DirecTV Speed Weeks begins February 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. Be there. We are under a full course caution for the third time thus far in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. There's the reason. The number 56 Ferrari 430 being towed in, and I believe it spread some debris on the super stretch back straight, bringing out the yellow flag. Hello everybody, you're watching live the 46th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. I'm Bob Varsha, joined by David Hobbs as the great race continues. One of the best international fields we've seen in many years here, and a big crowd on hand. It was very tough to get into the infield, and of course that's where everybody wants to be at Daytona for the Rolex. Very hard to get inside the track.
Well, Dorsey had to go back to his motorhome, which is down by Lake Lloyd there, to change his shirt. They wouldn't let him in at either end of the track. They just said, no, you can't come in, because they closed the infield at 9:30, which obviously is great to know that so many people are here for it.
If you're joining us late, we began the day under gray skies. It's still quite gray, but the skies are lightening, and we're seeing patches of blue out over the Atlantic Ocean. It is not raining. The track is dry. The temperatures are warming, and we've already seen 9 different overall leaders, all Daytona prototypes. Here's a look at the current conditions. 64-degree high expected. Rain chance just 40% for the balance of the day. And it gets dark early. One of the big challenges of the Rolex is the fact that the drivers spend about equal time in darkness and in daylight. Very much unlike the 24 hours of Le Mans, where most of the time
it's daylight. And it does make a big difference. Obviously, this is a much tighter track than Le Mans. It's much shorter, 3.5 miles as opposed to nearly 9. And there's some very tight corners here on the infield, although, of course, they've spoiled it a bit by floodlighting everything now, so the dark is not quite as bad as it used to be.
Go on board the number 72 GT machine, the Pontiac GXPR. That is Mad Max Papis. It was 11 years ago that Max burst on the scene here at Daytona in the Rolex, driving a Ferrari 333 XP, which was the top car of the day at that time. He got in that machine and was cranking out qualifying laps, pole equivalent laps in the closing hour of the race as he attempted to close on the leaders. Wasn't able to do it, finished second on the same lap as the race winning machine. Mad Max put on a show, and he's been a part of the American racing scene ever since.
He has indeed, and he's a colorful character. It's a great interview. He's great to talk to. He's good fun to be with, and he really enjoys his racing, puts his all into it, and we get a lot out of it watching him.
Currently shown 36th in the overall running order as the field continues to queue up behind the safety car. There's the other of the 2 Ferrari 430s in the field. And here comes one of the 5 Pontiac GTs, 4 GXP-Rs introduced last year, and 1 of the older GTO R models.
And that is Mad Max going through the bus stop on the back chute. Good looking car, very good looking, but as Dorsey has said earlier on, it's got a pretty big frontal area, so it's not quite as quick down the straight as some of the Porsches, but still in all, it's very good through the corners.
Sharing that car with Craig Stanton, Tim Lewis Jr., and Lawson Ossenbach. Here comes Justin Wilson.
Justin Wilson, very tall. You can see how his head is well up in that restraint area, then his head only just off the roof.
Several other cars also hitting the pits. Calvin Fish.
Well, both Shen cars in together as Justin Wilson behind the wheel of the 60. On the last pit stop, the 6 car had a stall, really prevented the 60 machine from getting out cleanly. Waiting on fuel, no tires, 60's away, and he stalls it. Justin Wilson stalls, and Ian James in the 6 machine beats him out.
Boy, it can be that close in the pits, losing or gaining positions simply on the pit stops. You need to have a professional crew, because there is very little margin for error in the pits and even in the garage area when it comes to the mechanical preparation of these cars. Now that we held at pit out under the new Grand Am pit policy, Scott Dixon moves to the lead in the 02 machine from Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. Brian Frizzell showed in second place in the 61 Daytona prototype. We'll take a break and return looking for a green flag at the 46th Rolex at Daytona. Welcome back live to Daytona International Speedway. The GT field is making its exclusive pit stop. Whoa!
Nearly a incident there. We've seen a couple of those.
Still under caution. The Daytona prototypes have already made their stops. Once these cars are released, the pits are open to anyone. All part of the new pit stop policy for Grand Am. Looks like one of the Stevenson Pontiacs having a hard time getting away. Let's go down to the pit lane and Calvin Fish.
Well, as Andrew Davis behind the wheel, these guys having a very strong run here in this new Pontiac for them. They've made the switch since last year from the Corvette, so very happy with that move. Talking to the drivers, talking to the guys who have Porsche experience, they said it's really relearning how to drive a car. The Porsche, you had a lot stiffer setup. This Pontiac, you have to let it roll and gain the grip that way. So the drivers certainly getting used to it, led by Mike Johnson, who's worked with us guys on speed, so certainly a very good strategist on the radio. Andrew Davis stand behind the wheel. Brian?
Talk about strategy and radios down there, Calvin. Well, down here at TRG, Spencer Pumpelly in the number 67, running second in the GT class, did not come to pit road that time. They're having radio problems. Kevin Buckler said, yes, for sure, we're going to bring him on this caution. He's not on pit road, and you got to wonder, those radio problems are keeping him from getting the communication that he needs.
There's your leader in the GT class. Nick Ham showed behind the wheel of one of the Speed Source Mazdas that have had such a big impact on this race thus far this weekend. We're into our third hour of the Rolex 24. Let's take a look at the highlights of the opening 2 hours. Rocket start, AJ Allmendinger jumping into the lead in one of the Mike Shank cars. But when the GT field got their own green flag, chaos breaking out. Anthony Lazzaro tapped into a big spin. Problems for both of those cars. A bit for the lead by Max the Axe Angelelli, and you see rainfall on the front window there as Helio Castro Neves loses the right front wheel or tire on Roger Penske's Penske Taylor entry. Two-time Indy 500 champion sitting patiently while the right front was repaired. They're currently shown in 15th place. In hour number 2, problems for the number 58, Brumos, Porsche Riley. David Donahue at the controls, long pit stop there. This was a spectacular incident. Guy Cosmo losing a wheel on the Spirit of Daytona Porsche-powered car. Long pit stop there. Patrick Dempsey, television and movie star, is on the driver's strength for the number 40 car. They're going to have a lot of work to do, though, after Charles Espinlaw suffered a left front tire failure. And Tommy Erdos, in one of the Cheever racing entries, the new Coyotes, also found himself behind the wall. There's our race summary. 9 different leaders. To put that in perspective, we had 9 different overall leaders over the entire 24 hours last year. 3 cautions for 11 laps. Well, lead is back out. We are back underway.
You're going to get that, Bob. You've got 44 seconds separating first to 16th, so it doesn't take anything, you know, pit stop or any sort of a bubble, you can lose that position. So it's been very, very closely fought at the top. Everybody's really keeping their head at the front of the field here and trying to stay out of trouble. The weather cleared up after that scare at the beginning when everybody thought it was going to rain and didn't. And here's Scott Dixon in the Ganassi car in the front. This is sort of, he's been lurking there, but he hasn't been at the front much yet. Had a good race with his teammate earlier on.
We've seen that during the first couple of hours of this race. Some of the heavy hitters, including the Ganassi cars, sort of laying back, letting the race unfold a little bit before coming forward. Brian Frizzell in black and gold, number 61 behind. One of the terrific young sports car drivers, driving in a separate car from that of his brother Bert for the first time in their burgeoning careers. This car has been very, very competitive. Mark Wilkins led in it in the early hours.
Well, it's another one of those Riley chassis, and they are really so strong, bulletproof, good, easy to drive. Right behind them is the lone Crawford in the race with the Porsche engine. That's at the moment being driven by Patrick Long, one of the factory drivers. That car's been going better in the race than it showed in qualifying too.
As Lee Diffie explained in the earlier hours of this race, new bodywork is allowed on all of these cars in the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series. Riley has come out with new bodywork for their car, but what we're seeing on track among all the Rileys is a mix of the new and the old. Some teams choosing to go with the tried and true as opposed to the new, slicker bodywork.
There you see Patrick Ricciardo. Oops, that's the Derek Bell, Justin Bell car. That looks like it's been damaged too.
That's Justin
driving. Was in it. That looks like he looped it on the way into the chicane to me. The front end is damaged. The splitter's damaged. He's hit it on something.
Trying to get it
fired up. These engines don't like stopping suddenly. Yeah, you can see where he's dug the soil up there to the right of the picture.
That's the Duran.
Well, that obviously dug in the. Now, why is he doing that? There must be something more wrong with that than we think.
Maybe waiting to be towed in.
Because it seemed to be running quite well under its own steam there.
He's going to take it behind the wall, and that's going to be costly. Justin driving with his father, Derek, the former two-time World Sports Car Champion and three-time Daytona winner.
The car belongs to Roger Schramm, and the plan was for Roger Schramm and Justin to campaign that car pretty much through the year. And Dad came along to join them for this race.
Right, Bill Lester, NASCAR fame, got a full season ride of the Grand Am with another team, so he pulled out of the number 12 car. And Derek Bell was drafted in. Not a bad substitution.
No, I'd say that. On board the number 10 car there. Ricky Taylor driving, Wayne Taylor's young son.
Just 18 years of age. That's right.
That's terrible, isn't it?
A couple of years removed from the Barber Dodge developmental series.
Ricky Taylor's only about 2 years younger than his dad was when I first met his father in South Africa.
Barber is now the Barber Mazda series, and they have announced a new program. They will be sanctioned. All of the Barber Racing series will be sanctioned by Grand Am. The Skip Barber Racing schools will become the official driver schools of the Grand Am Rolex series.
Yeah, very good deal, that.
Down at turn one, very tricky part of the racetrack here. Slightly off camber, approaching that apex. If you get it wrong, you're going to find yourself way off the racetrack.
Yeah, now a little sort of slight S as you come out of that turn 1 and 2 is very, can be very off-putting if you're trying to lap slower cars. If they just use up a bit too much road, catch you out badly.
Now put yourself in Ricky Taylor's shoes. Here he is, 18 years of age, somewhat limited in his experience. He's got 450 horsepower on his right foot. Slower traffic ahead, mixing it up with the Derek Bells and Scott Pruetts and Scott Dixons of the world.
Made a nice pass there going into the West Horseshoe.
And there's your new leader in the GT class, Emanuel, the vastly experienced Frenchman drafted into this team, has gotten around Nick Ham in the Mazda to take over the GT class lead. The GT class has become even more of a battlefield than ever. Big manufacturers like Porsche, Mazda, GM, bringing professional factory drivers to bear. There are so many names that you'd recognize down in the garage area, and many of them are in the GT series because this is the one manufacturers want to win desperately. The cars just like the ones you and I drive on the streets. Collard is a great example, a former overall winner of this race. Here's a look at the pass. Drawing up behind the Mazda in the draft, then ducking to the outside as they blast through the tri-oval and hit the brakes for turn 1.
Does a nice job there. He used the draft absolutely perfectly. Got around the outside.
Let's go down to Brian Till.
Spencer Pumpelly, one of the drivers, sharing that car with Collard. Spencer, I thought you were in the car a little while ago when we heard about radio problems on the 67, but it's Manny. Doesn't seem to have slowed him down at all.
No, not at all. I just took the lead. He's doing great. The TRG car, the Monster Cable car, is running great today. So far, everything's good. So I was holding our, crossing our fingers. There's only 22 more hours of this. So, but it would be nice to be able to talk to him.
Be nice to be able to talk to me. You heard him say, a long way to go, Cal.
It is a long way to go. It's a long way to go for Dave Watson, possibly for Justin Bell. Dave, you're the team manager here on the number 12 machine. What's the problem with Justin Bell right now in the race car?
We're just riding along and must have ran over some debris from that last caution, cut down a tire.
It's got to be a thrill for you to have a legend like Derek Bell under your auspices for this 24-hour race. Talk about the passion that he brings to this program still at his age.
Well, you wouldn't know he's that age. We got a lot of old guys here. We got plenty of experience, but he's a pretty cool guy, obviously.
What's the prognosis here? How do you get the car back? How do the rules work?
Well, if we can get it back, we can work on it. Justin said it was quite a ride, but we got the guys out there looking at it now.
Okay, mate, best of luck. Hopefully we'll see you back.
Now you're on board the number 64 machine. Jim Pace at the controls, another former overall winner of this race, as well as a class winner. Currently shown 25th overall and 4th in GT, but Pace is on the move.
I won't say what Pace is on.
Please. This is what makes this racetrack so distinctive for sports cars, the high banks.
Well, of course, they're not really designed for those high banks, so you know you have to make compromises to the suspension on these cars to be able to go around that bank, because it puts a lot of G-force through the car, a lot of download on the car, the suspension, the tires, and of course the driver.
Jim sharing the car with Jim Lowe, Johannes van Overbeek, Tim Sugden from England, and R.J. Valentine. This is the International Horseshoe.
There's a 70 car, it's Nick Ham in the Mazda in hot pursuit of the 67 car, Emanuel Collard. As you said earlier, Emanuel Collard very, very experienced in all types of racing, including Formula One. And Nick Ham is closing up big time now on Collard in the Porsche.
Back in 2005, Emanuel Collard picked up the overall victory. And I think it was just a year later he had a massive wreck early on in the race that took Wayne Taylor's number 10 SunTrust car out of the event. To Brian Till in the pits.
Ed Carpenter in the 03 Vision Racing entry onto pit lane. They're adding fuel and a little bit of oil to the top of the car. It runs down into this Porsche power plant. This was an unscheduled stop. I also see a crew member spraying some liquid on the windshield to help clean that off a little bit. Don't really know what the problem is. He came in very slow down pit lane. Right now the fuel going in, oil canister coming out. They're going to drop him. We'll see if he can get it refired and back underway, but an unscheduled stop, so don't really know what the problem is right now with the 03.
It's a Porsche-powered Crawford chassis. Call it the IRL house car. There's the 01 in the pits, Chris.
Well, Scott Pruett just got out of the Telemax car. Juan Pablo Montoya getting his chance behind the wheel for the first time in this race. Pretty standard stop here, just fuel and tires, putting Montoya in.
I tell you what, that car has got the most impressive lineup of drivers. I mean, when you read him, it's sort of like a who's who Hall of Fame of racing. Scott Pruett, the Willingham driver. Memo Rajas, who very quick in this car. Dario Franchitti, IndyCar 500 winner, and Juan Pablo Montoya, Indy 500 winner, and both of whom are also previous IndyCar IRL champions. And of course, Juan Pablo Montoya won the Monaco Grand Prix.
There's the 03 going behind the wall.
And good for them.
Tony George sharing with Vitor Mira, Ed Carpenter, AJ Foyt the fourth, John Andretti. We'll take a break. Dixon over Frizzell. There's the rest of the top, excuse me, the GT leaders. We'll be back. Just a few of the sights and sounds of the 46th Rolex 24 at Daytona, first round of the Grand Am Rolex Sports Car Series for 2008, and a great international event. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs up high. Chris Neville and Andrew Marriott are down in the pit lane. As the race continues, we've had 3 yellow flags, 9 different overall leaders. Let's get down to the pit lane for Chris Neville.
Well, as we just saw the Telmex car leave pit lane and Scott Pruett got out. Scott, you just had a couple hours behind the wheel. We're just scratching the surface of this race, but what are your thoughts?
I don't like how they've changed the, coming to a yellow, coming off a yellow. It puts too many people in harm's way. You get too many GTs in there with no passing before start finish. Everybody bottlenecks into turn one, and it's melee. But other than that, I mean, we're just being overcautious. It's really easy to lock a front, and we just don't want to have a problem with the intestine here. We actually blew a front, so we're just being overcautious right now not to have any problems. But Telmex car's running good. We're just doing what we need to do. The car's plenty fast, so.
Besides the cautions that we have, are you at all surprised with the pace of the race?
Not really, we kind of expected it to be the 43 by yourself, a lot of 44s. That's kind of what you were planning on, so it looks like it's falling into place pretty good. A lot of it depends on getting a clear lap, which, you never get, but, we'll just see how it goes, but the guys are doing a good job, and long way to go.
This team's going for 3 in a row. Andrew?
Well, I'm with Bill Riley here. Bill, you've got 17 cars in this race as well as the Masters. You're a busy man. It's a huge success story, your Daytona prototype.
Well, I couldn't quite hear the question because all the noise, but the Masters are running great right now. Sylvain Tremblay takes a chassis from us and finishes off. He does a great job with it. So they're really running good right now. I know Sylvain's leading right now.
Also, of course, you've got 17 prototypes out there. I think it's a huge success story.
Absolutely. It's been the best product we ever did. Grand-Am did a great job and gave us a great opportunity to sell a bunch of cars.
Bill, Lola and Dallara are coming to this series with new designs. Does that worry you?
Well, Lola was here to test, but they're not here now. And then Dallara, they're going to be tough to beat, but I think we're going to be ready for it.
Well, there is one busy man, and I have to tell you, pizza has just been delivered down here.
Well, keep your face out of it.
That's right.
It's theirs, not yours.
Keep the headset on, Andrew. Scott Dixon is the race leader. There's the 99, currently in the hands of Alex Gurney. Here's a close moment for him just a few minutes ago as they bottle up down in turn one. It's the 76 from Krone Racing, another Riley on the left. GT. Whoa! Oh, then the 75 slips through up onto the right curve goes Alex Gurney.
And that's Oliver Gavin in that 75 car. Oliver Gavin, a tough young driver. Well, tough middle-aged driver now, but it doesn't seem long since he was young. But that was, yeah, I'm pretty sure that he thought he got that pulled off, and then both those cars came whistling by.
This used to be a race of pace. And I suppose it still is, but that pace is now flat out for 24 hours.
Well, the thing is that all these long-distance races, like here and Le Mans, used to be such a race of attrition, and you had to wait your moment and really be careful and pace the car very, very carefully. But now they're strong, and they just keep hammering on, and these engines are indestructible, all of them. The Pontiacs, the Porsches. Whoa! Talking of Porsches, there's the number 23 car. That's being driven at the moment by Patrick Long.
In third place in the overall and the Daytona prototype. That was a save by the young American Porsche factory driver.
But these cars are so reliable and bulletproof now, they can just hammer them all the time. And so you just can't afford to make an extra stop. Like we said at the top of the show, you've just got to keep going.
Long drop to spot. That was a heck of a save. He's now down in fourth place behind Dixon, Brian Frizzell, and Ricardo Zonta, the former Toyota Formula One test driver, driving in those bright day-glow green Krone Racing cars. Zonta had a big accident in the test earlier in January. He had to be checked out at Halifax Hospital nearby the racetrack. And he came back to race, but it took out one of those Lola chassis we've been talking about. Krone Racing decided not to run the Lolas here in this 24-hour classic, so they brought back the tried and true Riley cars to run for now.
Well, of course, Lola will be very anxious to get their car into this series because it is a strong series, and of course this year is the 50th anniversary of Lola, and there are quite a few functions and things coming up over the course of the year that Lola are putting on.
Patrick Long lost another spot there to Alex Gurney, making his way forward in the 99. Let's see what happened here. Down into one.
He just kind of lost it under braking, really got wide. Now the trouble with that is there's a bit of a tyre coming off. The problem with going wide is as Dorsey was saying earlier on, there's quite a bit of marbling coming on now. The old clag's building up to the outside of the track, and when you do that and you go wide, the tires are hot.
Oh, there he goes again.
Yeah, he's obviously having a big problem with the brakes or the aerodynamics.
That team was chasing a suspension issue earlier in the race. On board the Brumos car, another team having problems apparently with the suspension. We'll try to chase that down. This is the 58, Darren Law now driving.
Whoa.
Passing the 91 of Jim Matthews.
Darren Law's a tough little driver too. He doesn't hang around for anybody.
Downshifting for the International Horseshoe.
There you see it from the outside. Justin Wilson in hot pursuit. Here you see it from Justin Wilson's viewpoint. Coming up to the West Horseshoe, going around the 17 GT car there. This is a slippery corner. This is a long corner. It's slippery, and you want to get the power on because this is a good overtaking opportunity coming into this corner here. And of course, you want to get this corner right because this leads you all the way up onto the banking. So every rev that you've got on board as you come through that corner, you hang on to all the way around to the bus stop. Wilson, so very important.
Wilson's in 7th place, about 37 seconds behind race leader Scott Dixon. Darren Law, who just went by, is 2 laps down to the race leader after that long stop. This is the chicane.
Well, whatever was wrong with the Brumos car before seems to have cured itself now, doesn't it?
It disappears around the banking.
Pulled out a lot.
Up to around 185 miles an hour or so. Still hard on it. Watch how late they brake. Off the gas there.
Yeah, going past the 07 GT car there, the Pontiac.
72 up ahead of him. That's Max Papis in that Pontiac GXPR.
Ooh. See, Matt, that's what I meant. It's easy to go wide on the exit of that corner there, and the DP's trying to come past the GTs. It's a hair-raising spot, or it can be. It's Chris Wilson, the 27 car. He just overtook. This is that very fast kink that Dorsey was talking about earlier on. The problem with that is as you exit the kink, the car's really loaded up on the right side as you're going through that fast left-hand sweeper, and then you've got to clamp on the anchors to get around that tight horseshoe.
As Darren Law handles the 58 up ahead, being pursued by Justin Wilson. Let's hear from one of Law's teammates about what the problem might be. Chris Neville in the pit lane.
Well, Buddy Rice is on deck for the 58 down here. Buddy, we know there were some problems with the Brumos car earlier in the race. Long pit stops trying to see if there was some suspension problems or if it was a weird wheel tire issue. Car looks good right now. What's up?
I don't know. I think everything's kind of sorted out. I was back just kind of resting, getting something to eat to get ready for my stint. But, Darren's in there. He's turning fast laps. And we're just going to, kind of get ourselves a little bit of hole. But we're going to start working our way back up there. And, it's a long ways to go.
Well, like he said, it's a long ways to go. These guys can dig out of it. Penske already dug out of it earlier today. So these guys have quite a few hours in front of them.
Buddy Rice, one of 4 winners of the Indianapolis 500, taking part in this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. Another very, very strong driver lineup in the Brumos Porsche, number 58. Long way to go here at Daytona. We're a little over halfway through our 3rd hour in the 24 hours that make up the Rolex 24 at Daytona. There's a beautiful look down on a jam-packed infield at Daytona International Speedway as the Rolex 24 at Daytona continues live here on Speed. Our aerial coverage is brought to you by DirecTV, now broadcasting over 75 national high-def channels. And to have DirecTV along this 46th Rolex 24. We talk about putting the International back in Daytona International Speedway. Look at all of these drivers. Lots of names all from other countries. Derek Bell, of course, from England, as is Andy Wallace. Allan McNish, the Scotsman, who is on track right now, currently shown in 8th place. Juan Pablo Montoya, of course, is from Colombia. Scotsman Franchitti, Australian Dixon, Englishman Weldon, Brazilian Castroneves, Jan Magnussen from Denmark, Thomas Enge from the Czech Republic, Justin Wilson from the UK, Max Papis of Italy, Eric Van der Poel of Belgium, and Ricardo Zonta of Brazil. More than 24 different countries represented in this year's field. Diverse by nationality, diverse by day jobs, you might say. So many drivers from so many great series.
Absolutely. It's quite extraordinary how many series are represented here and how many top winners of those series are here. The IndyCar winners.
And speaking of international stars, Paddy Chauvelin is now behind the wheel of the number 7 car. These guys contended early on, now shown in 14th as they pit. To Chris Neville.
Well, Mike Rockenfeller's been racing in the U.S. for a number of years now, and he still looks so young, you kind of forget about that. Rocky, I know you had some problems in qualifying with that throttle cable. The car looks strong right now. How's Allan doing out there?
He's doing great. I mean, you know, we just try to keep on the lead lap and stay on the lead lap, and it's a long race. So I think if we are there where we are right now at the end, like 4 hours to go, I think we're in a good shape.
Last year you moved over to the Audi factory program. Lots of obligations there. Can't believe they kind of released you to do this. Do you kind of feel a bit overwhelmed when you do something like it?
I mean, it's very nice of our boss, Dr. Ulrich, that he gave us the chance that we could drive here, because it's boring for us in Europe. It's nothing going on, and I mean 24 hours of Daytona is something special, and we all want to have this watch, so that's why we are here, and we're having fun, and yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Well, not only do they get to participate in this special race, they also get warmed up before their own season.
They are racers. They want to race, particularly this guy, Allan McNish, who has finished second twice in this race and desperately wants that beautiful Rolex Daytona watch. How about the team owner, Peter Barron, and local businessman and gentleman driver Henry Zogabe getting together to bring in Lucas Luhr, Allan McNish, and Mike Rockenfeller to drive with Zogabe in this car.
Tough team, very tough team, and Allan McNish, toughest of all. Very, very tenacious, very fast, very good driver, very good technical input to the team. Knows really what he's doing, and of course knows how to drive in these long, hard races. He said at the top of the show it was going to be a hard one because it looked like it was going to rain a lot more than it has in the end, but even so, you know, he's used to these bad conditions, and he'll be putting that car through the ringer at the moment without wringing it out.
And Mike Rockenfeller spoke for so many of the international drivers in this race, saying, you know, I don't care what we do the rest of the year. I want to go to Daytona. I want to be a part of the Rolex 24. I want a shot at the watch, as Allan McNish says.
Yeah.
That's what makes this race so much fun. The order is Scott Dixon, Brian Frizzell, Ricardo Zonta, then Alex Gurney in the 99 car, Patrick Long, who we saw have those problems in the Ruby Tuesday car, one of only 2 Crawford chassis, this one with Porsche power in the race. João Barbosa in the 59 car, the Brumos car, is now 6th. Justin Wilson 7th. Allan McNish right there in the 2 is now 8th.
But all these guys are having a chance at leading. You know, there's still only, I know it sounds a lot by NASCAR standards, you know, 50 seconds down, but these are long pit stops, and if you just get out of sequence a little bit, you can find yourself 30 seconds down in a heartbeat, but then of course you just pick it up the next time the other guy stops. So it's really a very close race at the top still.
Here's the number 88 in the GT class, Greg Wilkins. He's 7 laps down to the race leader, but again, that's one of the slower GT machines, the production-based cars. More important to them is their position relative to the class leader, which is currently Emanuel Collard in a similar Porsche 911, 3 laps ahead of Wilkins.
Yeah, the top of the GT class, you got Emanuel Collard, Nick Ham behind him in the Mazda, or
Jörg Bergmeister, a former class champion.
I mean, there's only like 5 seconds between that lot, and Jim Pace is another 10 seconds behind him.
On board the Telmex car once again. Working traffic. That's Max Papis in the 72. Is he still in that car? Let me double check that. Yes, he is. Running mid-pack in the GT category.
Montoya at the wheel.
This car, having made the pit stop, switching over from Scott Pruett to Juan Pablo Montoya, currently 13th in the overall and DP.
Now, this car was leading at one stage, but look at it right down now, 38 seconds behind. Now it's 31 seconds behind, so he's obviously picking up some time.
This is the 6th year for the Daytona prototype class. Back in 2003, when the class was introduced, only a half dozen Daytona prototypes made the start of the race. Only a couple finished, and the race was won memorably by a Porsche 911, a GT victory, one of the few in the 46-year history of this race. Now the Daytona prototype class appears to be very strong, 25 in all in this year's race. To go with 41 GT cars. There's the 99. The defending Grand Am Daytona prototype champion Gainesco Bob Stallings racing team. Alex Gurney in 4th overall, 21 seconds behind race leader Dixon. Zonta has fallen back into the clutches of Patrick Long. I didn't see Patrick Long pit for tires, so maybe he was just having to ratchet back his aggression a little bit. This is the corner that's been giving him so many problems. And the Crawford looks like it's sticking pretty well there. He's going to get by Zonta and the Riley.
Who did it to him there just a few laps apart, so he's got round him. That was a nice move there.
Between a pair of professionals.
Boy, I'll say.
Saw a little bit of tire rubber.
Patrick Long, a long time now, a factory driver for Porsche. Of course, Ricardo Zonta, hugely experienced, winning the World Sports Car Championship a few years back, then driving for Toyota for a long time as a test driver and in the races, and now still doing some testing, and obviously here behind the wheel of the 74 car.
There's an update from the garage area. A former class leader, the number 7 car, a BMW Riley, is in the garage for a gearbox repair.
Yeah, they were going so well. That's the BMW engine car.
GT leader is on the pit lane, flashing the headlights to let the crew know where he is. Let's go. Oh,
yes, it's come by and very nearly taken my cameraman out. This is a routine stop. And Emanuel Collard climbs out, jumps over the wall. Of course, one thing is difficult in Grand Am with these Porsches. They do not have a central lock wheel. They have wheel nuts, and in fact, one's just gone running down into the center of the pit lane. So these boys have to work so much harder when they're changing these wheels than they would, of course, in the ALMS, where it's a center lock wheel. But all this is looking good. The purple machine here will be out in just a few minutes, a few seconds, I should say. Fuel still going in, and we'll then grab a word with Emanuel Collard.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Many of you viewers may recognize Andrew Marriott as the voice of the DTM, the German Touring Car Championship here on Speed. Notice that pit wall to your right? Well, one of the more awkward moments of the weekend thus far came during the Coney Challenge race yesterday, a race you'll see here on Speed, when the teams all piled into the pit lane, sat down on the pit wall, got up and realized that the new paint on the wall had not quite dried. The 99 is in. Chris Neville.
Well, Jimmy Johnson getting behind the wheel of the Lowe's Gainesco machine. His first chance at the Rolex this year. Alex Gurney had a great beginning stint here. Almost 3 hours behind the wheel. Brian Till was looking under the car, the last pit stop, looking for some fluid that was leaking out. I'm looking under there now. Looks like everything is fine. So if this car was dealing with any overheating issues early on, everything looks good now. Jimmy Johnson down and away.
As a look into the eyes of the two-time defending NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, who sat out this race a year ago and watched his good buddy Casey Mears come in and win the race. One of the few NASCAR regulars to pick up a victory and a Rolex watch. Here, the Rolex 24. Johnson said, that got me off the couch in the biggest possible way. I was looking for a great team to drive with, and he found one of the defending series champions, the Gainesco team. I was glad to hear him be very candid about what he'd been doing all winter. Not working out, not, going out to his hunting cabin. He said, I got tired of sitting on the couch drinking beer. I wanted to go drive race cars again.
Well, that's what he said, didn't he? Yeah, right. When they said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I just like driving race cars. He's got a very busy schedule coming up, testing in Las Vegas, putting on some golf tournament, and then, of course, he's got to start practicing for the 500 in a few, well, just a handful of days, really.
Also trying to turn a page in NASCAR history of his own. We have had 15 NASCAR Cup champions, if you will. Champions of NASCAR's top touring series, rather it was called Grand National, Winston Cup, Nextel Cup, or Sprint Cup. 15 of them have come here carrying that trophy entered the Rolex 24 and failed to win it. If he can do it, he'll be the first. Probably the biggest heartbreak was Tony Stewart's just a few short years ago. 20 minutes from the flag driving that Crawford, and the suspension kept cracking and they kept banging 2x4s in there and stringing it together, trying to get to the end. At one point, Stewart was driving it on 3 wheels literally, but finally the suspension broke, tore up the bodywork, and parked the car in the wall. What a heartbreak for Tony Stewart.
Terrible, terrible.
There's a look at the progress for the 99. Down the backstretch he goes, headed for the chicane. More action in the pit lane, more action everywhere around Daytona International Speedway. We'll take a break and return. Stay with us here on Speed. Welcome back live to Daytona International Speedway and the 46th Rolex 24 at Daytona here on Speed. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs, Andrew Marriott, Chris Neville in the pit lane. Let's get you caught up. The 02 car, formerly the race leader in the hands of Scott Dixon, pitted. Dan Weldon has taken over, and the new leader is the 61 in the hands of Brian Frizzell. And I told you earlier, the number 7 BMW car went to the garage for a gearbox fix. It is now back on track in the hands of former open wheel star Stefan Gregoire, but he is running 6 laps down to the race leader, Frizzell. Now let's get down to the pit lane. Andrew Marriott standing by with Emanuel Collard.
Yeah, I'm with the former winner, overall winner of this race, but Emanuel, you're looking to get another watch, but this time it's going to be in GT.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's always a win. So, but we still have a long time before thinking about this.
How difficult is it to get back into one of these Porsches after going much faster in prototypes and all the other cars you've driven, of course?
Yeah, you have to change a little bit your driving style, especially on the braking, because the car is pitching a lot compared to a prototype. But now every lap it's better and better for me. I was not pushing at all at first in, just to have an idea of the car. And also with the traffic at the moment, it's quite difficult. There are so many cars at the moment on the track.
Do you have any regrets? I mean, I remember when you were testing for Tyrrell, you were very close to being in Formula 1. You were a star in Formula 3000, but you never really made the big time. Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, of course. It's always difficult to understand this, but this is the case, and now I'm really happy with what I'm doing now with Porsche, especially. Endurance race is a really good series, and I like it.
Thanks very much. Chris, you've got a story for us.
Andrew down here with Allan McNish up in pit lane trying to come in for just a routine stop, and the center lug on the right rear is stuck on the car. It looks like, yeah, it was definitely the tire they were trying to get off, so it's not that they put the new lug nut or the lug nut on the new tire and got it cross-threaded. They just can't get this one off at this point in time. They're down here with a hammer trying to bang on it, see if they can get it loosened up, but this is definitely a long stop. Right behind him, Patrick Long bringing in the Ruby Tuesday car. We saw Patrick struggling with the balance in this car under braking, the rear wheels locking up. Checked in with Alex Job a little while ago, asking him what the problem was. He said, I don't think we have an issue. Patrick's just having a difficult time trying to find that balance. He's working that bias bar in the car, trying to get that forward bias, a little bit more forward bias on the brakes, so he doesn't have to deal with that lockup. And obviously, since he's in now, he had a very light fuel load in the car. Andy Wallace now in the car behind the wheel. Big week for Andy Wallace. Big announcement out of Howard Motorsports. It's going to be now Childress Howard Motorsports running a limited season this year. They're looking to run 2 cars next year. Andrew?
Well, lots of activity down here. Porsches all around. It says the 86 car, that's the Hengstler Bergmeister car going out. That stopped without change of tyres or driver, so they're obviously double stinting now. And I'm sure that 86 car is going to be one of the ones that's right in the front at the end of GT.
All right, thank you, guys. Boy, given what we've seen, if a team can double stint tires and just put fuel in and go, that could be a huge advantage as this race wears on. Back to that drama in the number 2 pits. Looks like they stuck a grinder or something in there just as the camera shot went away, and they've finally gotten that wheel off. Chris Neville, can you update?
Bob, you got it right. They've got that wheel off the car right now. They had to get a grinder in there. I couldn't tell if they had to grind that lug loose or if they were just trying to clean up the hub once they got it off the car. I'm going to try and get a word with Allan McNish here in just a second. He just got out of the car.
Tumbled all the way back to 14.
Well, the car is now down and away. Allan, you're having a great run in the car, but what happened with that right rear?
Not exactly sure. I just radioed to say the car balance was actually getting better. And just at the moment, coming off NASCAR 4, the rear started to oversteer badly, as if it was three-wheeling. And then the brake pedal went to the floor. I was very fortunate at that point of the circuit. It could come straight into the box. But we've had a good look around it, changed the tyres, changed it to Lucas, and off we go. At this moment in time, I'm glad I got it back to the pits at this point.
Yeah, he got very lucky there being able to dive into pit lane, so he didn't have to go all the way around the racetrack, but they did lose some time in the race, or during trying to get that center lug off. But remember, we've got quite a few hours in front of us.
That's right, just under 21 hours remaining in the race. As you see, Lucas Luhr from Monaco, formerly a Porsche factory driver, now driving for Audi. Keep an eye on that right rear. Luhr being very careful, as he should. Here's a look at that grinding. It looks like they're not, maybe they were working on that center hub.
Yeah.
Quite sure.
But obviously the wheel had come loose, which is what Allan felt. The wheel had come loose on the banking. So I wonder if the locking pin had broken or come unglued or half unglued, and the wheel had got half off, and then the nut had jammed on. But if that was the case, I'm not quite sure how they get the new one on so successfully. But anyway,
maybe that's what they were doing, was cutting the remains of the pin off, so they didn't hurt the hub. 61 is in from the race lead. Chris?
Well, the 61 took the lead when the 02 came into pit lane. It was just a couple seconds behind Scott Dixon when he was behind the wheel of the 02-1 car. So we're going to have to see how this pit stop goes, see if they can try and make up a little bit of time here and stay out in front of that Telmex machine. Andrew Ranger getting behind the wheel. Brian Fussell having a great stint in the car. This team really focused a lot this winter on just trying to button up their whole program. They took a good look at the car. They focused on driver comfort and really trying to screw the thing together a little bit tighter. They looked at the gaps in the bodywork that they had. They wanted to show up to Daytona with a very tight car. Everything looking really strong right now. However, this is a long pit stop trying to get Ranger behind the wheel. Fuel and tires were done before they got Ranger off and away.
That is the youngest driver lineup in the race, and there they are in the featured Daytona prototype class. Colin Braun is about 19, Brian Frizzell, Andrew Ranger is just 21, and Mark Wilkins. They average just over 20 years of age. Andrew Ranger, the NASCAR Canadian Tire Champion, first year for that NASCAR sanctioned series north of the border. There's Justin Wilson. He has taken over the race lead while the 61 was stationary. Looking around as he makes his way along. Gray skies overhead, but still dry here at Daytona International Speedway. And the night is not too many hours away. Stay with us. February 20th, Pinks returns for an all-new season with new rules, more racing, more drama, more on the line. Don't miss the season premiere of Pinks, February 20th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 10 Pacific, part of Premiere Week right here on Speed. Back live at Daytona International Speedway. There is the number 16 car from Cheever Racing, that newly renamed Coyote chassis. It was known as the Fab car. Eddie Cheever desires to become a sports car constructor, so he bought up the rights to make these cars. Asked AJ Foyt if he could revive the name of AJ's legendary line of Indy cars. AJ said okay, and there it is, the new Pontiac Coyote from Cheever Racing, currently 53rd overall. Let's go to Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, about an hour ago, we saw problems with both the 16 and the 51. Eddie, can you give us an update on what happened with the cars?
We had an engine failure with the 51. There's a hole in the block, so that one's out of it. And with the 16, we had an alternator wire break, and we lost 14 laps. It was a bit of a big disappointment because the car was running really well. We had worked our way up to 12th, and the car was running in the 43s, which was quick.
Now, not only did you rebrand the car from Fab Car over to Coyote, what kinds of things did you look to redevelop in the next generation?
Ever since we acquired Fab Car, We've modernized every little bit we could. We've upgraded all the engineering of it, and obviously we came out with a new bodywork. So we were hoping to have it at least 3 weeks ago, but we weren't able. So our testing is almost being done today, but it's a brand new car, much lighter, more rigid. You know, it's the best that we had available, and we're very proud of it. But unfortunately now we're 14 laps down, but there's 20 hours and 51 minutes left. That's a long way to go.
Well, high aspirations, but a tough start for the Desert Dogs. Andrew?
Yeah, I've got a very famous name from sports car racing. We're in Max Papis, just climbed out of the Autohaus Pontiac. Max, a bit different for you, this machine.
Absolutely, you know, we are, you know, in a great battle out there. You know, we lost a lap due to the pace car, but, you know, we're definitely hurting a lot in top speed, but the handling of the Pontiac is amazing. You know, we are, you know, it's kind of a tough battle because, you know, Porsches passes on the straightaway, and we get them in the corner, so overall it makes it really hard work.
Looking in the mirror rather more than you're used to, Max.
Absolutely, you know, actually I'm looking in the mirror in the front, the side drafting, trying to get all the draft I can from everyone around, but let me tell you, this Pontiac GXP is running really well, and you know, the guys here are doing a great job.
This is a great event, isn't it? A wonderful international event.
Daytona is Daytona, and I really feel it's my home track, and it's great. It's just a great place, and thanks for all the support out at home, and Mad Max is at home.
Mad Max is at home. Back to you, boys.
Mad Max is in the house. Yeah. Overall winner in 2002. Saw the film stripped off the windshield of one of the Pontiac GXP-Rs. It was the leader in the GT class when it pitted. Now fifth. Kelly Collins pitted the car. I don't think he is in it now. That's Dane Jan Magnussen. Once touted as a future Formula One world champion, but his career has taken a different path.
Well, he won the British Formula 3 Championship, which is, you know, one of the open-wheel championships to win if you want to go on Formula 1. And Jackie Stewart had a tremendous amount. He said, this kid is going to be the next Michael Schumacher, who was lurking around at the time. And it just never, he drove for Jackie Stewart in the original Stewart team. And just somehow it never kind of worked out. And Jackie kind of intimated that he didn't think that Jan put enough effort into it, but I don't know. I think it's just a case of a bit of luck, a bit of bad timing, maybe the car wasn't right, all sorts of things.
Andrew?
I'd like to add to that because I had long discussions with Jan about this, and he just felt he got into the team too young, and he just felt he was too immature really to take all the pressure of Formula One, and he knows it was a missed opportunity, but then he's carved out a fine career since. But I think Jan Magnussen is one of the great talents, and I think he would have been great in Formula One. And one thing just to reflect, guys, isn't it incredible how many great Danish racing drivers there are? A tiny little Scandinavian country, but, you know, the Tom Christiansens of this world and many others.
Mm-hmm. John Nielsen comes to mind.
The Great Danes.
Yep. There are several little countries. A country like Finland, for example. There's Graham Rahal, great young American driver, climbing into the number 60, taking over for Justin Wilson, his champ car rival.
They were leading as they came into pits, but now obviously dropping down the sheet.
This will be the first stint for the son of 1981 Rolex 24 winner Bobby Rahal, who of course also had a brief tenure in Formula One, won the Indianapolis 500. Bobby is a bit of an underrated sports car driver. I think a lot of folks, because of his outstanding success in open-wheeled racing, tend to forget that Bobby has won a lot of races in sports cars over the years, places like Sebring and Daytona.
I drove with him at Sebring in 1986 with the BMW prototype, and it was while it was being developed, and we had a few teething problems, and the bodywork came up on old Bobby, and I've never seen anybody go such a huge end over end. I mean, it was pretty massive shunt.
There's the 9 car. Recall earlier in our highlight package we showed Helio Castroneves suffer a right front corner go down. Long pit stop for that car. Now Ryan Briscoe is in it, and they are once again back on the lead. They have made up a lap and forged their way back to the front. making them the 10th different overall leader we've seen today. Remember, last year we had 9 in 24 hours.
Very clever, typical Roger Penske pit strategy. They came in with the tire in shreds. It had damaged the bodywork. They took the bodywork off, ripped the tire off, which all the cords, of course, had gone everywhere around the axle and everything at the front. Now, is this right?
Yeah, this is probably a scheduled stop. Well, we'll find out momentarily.
And then, obviously, so they didn't lose a lap. They rushed around with no front on the car, came in, and so they did not lose their lap as they could have done.
Off come wheels. Limited number of crewmen in the pit lane. You see the Grand Am inspector watching it all very carefully. No driver change. Fuel and tires only, it appears.
The car close up. It's the usual Penske specs. Absolutely immaculate, as you can imagine.
The number 6 car in as well. Ian James from 5th place. There's a great story. I asked Wayne Taylor about acquiring that car after agreeing with Roger Penske for the entry. Apparently Penske's guys descended on the car, about 14 of them, picked it up, took it back to the shops, tore it completely apart, rebuilt it, tested it, tore it apart again. I mean, Wayne just rolls his eyes when you ask him about the Penske way of going racing.
Absolutely.
He said, I've learned a lot about car prep from Roger. And away they go. Ricky Taylor now in the lead. Here's another young driver, Colin Braun with Chris Neville.
Well, Bob, in the past couple years, we've had a few young drivers take their successes from the Grand Am Series and move into the NASCAR Series. Colin, you were the big announcement last year. You've been doing a lot of testing. Were you getting a little bit bored turning left?
Absolutely. You know, it's fun driving those stock cars. I'm loving that. You know, first off, I want to say hi to all the guys at the Ross Shop and at Conway. I know there's a lot of people watching this on TV, and you know, everything's going great so far. Really excited to be driving the AIM car here. They put a lot of effort into this race and really made a nice piece. You know, we're out here, I think we were leading there for quite a while, and now I think we're in 5th. So I think we got a good shot at this. It's one of the best cars I've had starting the 24-hour race, and excited to get my stint there and to drive the exchange traded gold car. It should be fun.
Now, you had a big thump in testing here. Are you all right? And what happened?
I'm fine. You know, my teammate and I unfortunately got together here in the tri-oval and ended up hitting the fence, so that was a little disappointing, but we picked ourselves up from that, went to Atlanta. We're both really quick, so looking forward to getting to the first race here. Hopefully we can all the Roach trucks can finish strong. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we always enjoyed watching Colin Braun in this series. I'm sure we'll keep our eyes on him in the Craftsman Truck Series too. Andrew?
Yeah, I've got Kelly Collins with me here. Kelly just out of the Banner Engineering Pontiac. Car going pretty well, Kelly.
Yeah, the Banner Pontiac GXPR is going well. We have to set a pace. We have to just keep driving for 18 hours, wait until tomorrow and see where we're at. And I know that sounds like a broken record, but truly we're down about 10 to 12 miles an hour top speed to the Porsches and the Mazdas on the straightaway. So we just need to keep plugging away. It's awfully frustrated passing on the infield. We have the brakes and handling, and then they pass us back. It's like the Chinese water torture, just a drip right in your forehead for about an hour straight. But other than that, it's good. We took the cool suit out to save a little weight, and it's a little hot in the car. Other than that, it's good.
Kelly, one of the greatest experiences in your racing career is racing here alongside the late, great Dale Earnhardt. Just reflect on that.
You know what? That was fantastic. It came about so just unbelievably bizarre, and I've had a very lucky racing career, and to be teammates with him and Dale Jr. and ultimately what ended up happening, finishing second, and then what happened to Dale 2 weeks later, it's just a chunk in history that nobody will ever be able to repeat again, and it was just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, thanks very much. In fact, I interviewed him at the end of the race, and when I think about it, I still have goose pimples about interviewing Dale Earnhardt just two weeks before he died.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll say it again. We did not see the best of Dale Earnhardt as a road racer. He wanted to go to Le Mans. There's the new race leader, Ricardo Zonta, in the Krone Racing Riley. You saw the 10-car pit. Ricky Taylor climbed out after what must certainly be an exhilarating moment for the Taylor family. Michael Valiente now in that car. Ricardo Zonta on the race lead, and we'll be back to Daytona.
Welcome back to the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Standing here at the SunTrust pit. The 10 car was just in, and it was a real passing of the torch today between Wayne Taylor and his son, Ricky Taylor. Ricky, you had a great opening stint, your first time in Rolex Series competition. What were your thoughts?
Oh, it was a great time out there. My dad and I have been talking every day about what it takes in the 24-hour and how sometimes you can have good stints, sometimes you can have bad stints, and just depends how the traffic comes at you. But with that stint, definitely, I got through the traffic. It wasn't too bad, so I enjoyed it out there, and they just told me I led a lap, so I'm real happy.
Well, he got to lead a lap with the likes of Juan Pablo Montoya and Jimmy Johnson also on the track. Looking at Ricky Taylor, only 18 years old, and Colin Braun, 19 years old. These guys don't have a whisker on their face. I'd be surprised if either of them own razors.
Yeah, Colin Braun, imagine, the best car I've ever driven in my career. The guy's 19 years old. There's a look at the man who just replaced Ricky Taylor. This is Michael Valiente. Back in 2002, he finished second in the Champ Car Atlantic Championship to another driver in this year's race, John Fogerty, who's in the 99 car. Valiente was a superstar in karts. In fact, that was the family business. Made his way up through the Atlantic ranks, finished third in that championship in 03, and then sort of lost his way a little bit looking for a ride in sports cars. And here he is. He will pair with Max Angelelli in this very, very strong SunTrust team throughout the 2008 campaign. Valiente has rejoined in 10th place. There's the other young Taylor, Jordan Taylor, just 16 years of age, driving in the GT class today. He's with Andrew Marriott.
Jordan, this must be a dream, racing at Daytona, and you're only 16. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I've been watching the race coming to the race to watch my dad for the last 10 years, so it's just so nice to finally do it.
What about Big Brother? Are you able to follow his progress because you're the other end of the pits, of course?
Yeah, I've been watching the timing and scoring, and Speed was covering most of his stints. I saw his laps, and he made up a few positions, so he was doing well.
You had a stellar season last year in Barber, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a tough season with Gabby Chavez, but I raced in the East. I won 4 races, but came out with the championship, so it was a good season.
Now, you come from this big sports car background. Have you got any thoughts about single-seater racing, having just done it, or is sports car where you want to be?
Well, I've always been more sports car, like affiliated with my dad, and open was a little bit too much of a dream for me since the money and how everything's going downhill. But I'm happy to be here. I've always liked Porsches, and it's just a nice thing to do.
Jordan, thanks very much. Chris Neville's got another story down the lane.
Well, Juan Pablo Montoya bring the Telmex target machine to pit lane. It was a perfect stop by the team. They got the tires done, waited on the fuel, and the team spent a lot of time looking over the car, also blowing out that front radiator, getting all that rubber debris out of there, making sure nothing was going to get clogged up this early in the race.
All right, thanks, Chris. Right, Jordan Taylor sounds remarkably mature. Boy, I don't know what you were doing at 16, but I sure wasn't driving a Porsche in the...
Not sounding like that, I'd tell you that.
Man.
Riding a bike.
On board the number 40 now. Remember, this car, this Mazda, with actor Patrick Dempsey on the driver's strength, was parked by the side of the road dripping fluids. They have lost a lot of laps, but they are now back on track.
I had a major malfunction of the left front wheel. The tire was flat, but the tire was flat because the wheel had stopped going around and wore through the tire. So I'm not quite sure what went wrong with it, but whatever it was, the front left wheel was jammed solid as we saw it parked out on the track. So maybe a bearing seized, and they've had to change the whole front stub axle. We need our Steve Matchett here for some...
Let me check that. I think I called it the 40. It's the 17, that car with those amazing graphics.
Is you on there, Bob? Is that you?
Trying to catch their position. Look at that. And this is these are a wrap. You know, current contemporary race cars aren't painted. They are wrapped with this amazing thin film. In a space of a couple of hours, a car can be completely re-liveried. That one's got some famous folks on it. A young Raquel Welch on the hood, Frank Sinatra alongside. Gary Jensen at the controls, 52nd overall. And deep in the GT field. Andrew?
And looking out at the back of that car, the eyes of my all-time hero, Steve McQueen. It's all all these are reproductions of photographs by a London photographer called Terry O'Neill. And in the swinging 60s, which David, of course, will remember, Terry O'Neill was the photographer. He was married to a famous actress, and he even took photographs of the Queen, amongst other people. So these images are all over this car, Bob, as you say, wrapped around it, and it's just very, very interesting to look at it. It's a great idea.
Should have known it was the 17. Yeah, that's the car Jordan Taylor is sharing with Gary Jensen and Mark Jensen, both of Winter Park, Florida, and Ron Zitza, a regular in Rolex competition from Maitland, Florida. There's Scott Pruett facing the crowd here at Daytona. We'll take a break and return. Stay with us.